Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, a post-game edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. I'm John Ledyard from PewterReport.com, along with Scott Reynolds of PewterReport.com, and unfortunately, we are here to talk about a Bucs loss, not just any loss, Scott, a humiliating 9-0 shutout loss to the Saints at home, with the division title on the line, and the Bucs just absolutely laid an egg.
Yeah, this was a game where, it seemed to me like Byron Leftwich was not the play caller, but the quarterback in this game, because I've seen some god-awful offensive performances. And Leftwich back in 2009 authored a couple of them with Greg Olson as the coordinator under Raheem Morris. Just a pathetic offense back then. And Josh Freeman eventually took over, but listen, this was up there with some of the worst Bucs games I've ever seen. Just an absolute train wreck. The worst part about this is they were injured, right? I mean, the Buccaneers suffered so many injuries. It's not even about this game. It's about next week, the week after that, the playoffs.
Right.
This was brutal in the sense that it wasn't just the complete meltdown by the offense. It was all the injuries that this team sustained. And then also, too, I think that for anybody out there that wanted AB off this team, I think you've changed your mind by now, right? And you want Rashard Perriman off the COVID list too, right? I think that's exactly what's up. Because I'll tell you what, these young guys, Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Jalen Darden, Sneak Vaughn, showed me absolutely nothing.
Young guy Cam Brate. Oh, wait, Cam Brate's a vet? Oh, wait, Cam Brate's made his career catching tough balls. Yeah, he was a complete dud.
He was.
What a dud he was. Awful.
Speaking of duds, let's go through some of these numbers. Tom Brady, 26 of 48 for 214 yards and an interception. Got sacked 4 times. The Bucs offensive line got worked over, but at the same time, I agree with Bruce Arians. There was not enough separation at all. Some of these sacks were coverage sacks. Rob Gronkowski, 2 catches, 29 yards. He was targeted 11 times. I don't know that Gronk's ever had a stat line like that. 11 targets.
If he has, it's come against the Saints. But yeah, probably not that many targets. I mean, he dropped 3 passes, a bunch of other catchable balls. I didn't even counting the one that got tipped and he kind of grabbed with one hand and should have probably caught still.
Yeah.
But Josh, it was horrible.
It really was, and so I think the biggest story out of this game is not that they lost to the Saints again. I put a little fun fact out there on Twitter just to kind of cheer everybody up. I said the last time the Bucs were swept by the Saints, they won the Super Bowl. That was last year. And also, John, in 2002 they got swept by the Saints. They won the Super Bowl that year too. So will this be par for the course? I don't know, but history says this is not the end of the world. But again, the storyline coming out of this game is not the 9-0 loss, not the embarrassment of not getting the hats and T-shirts tonight. That's eventually going to come, I believe. It's the injuries. It's who's going to be available next week for Carolina, which that should be a winnable game, but it depends on who's out there catching passes from Tom Brady, or should I say not catching passes from Tom Brady.
Right. Yeah, tonight it was definitely not catching, Scott. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the one good thing we're catching tonight, which is a little boost of energy from our friends over at Celsius. Celsius powers active lives every day with essential functional energy. No sugar. And my orange sickle here that I'm rocking to finish off the night. No sugar in this thing, but unbelievable taste and flavor. And it's like that with all the Celsius flavors, Scott. They're just outstanding stuff from Celsius to create so many good. You can see a Fuji apple pear, strawberry guava, wild berry.
Fuji apple pear. John had a Fuji apple pear tonight. I crushed the can and I threw it against the wall, so I can't even use it as a prop tonight. Okay, but I did have a Fuji apple pear. It's part of it is splattered on my wall, and
I was going to say that's the fault of the Bucs, I think. Probably.
Yeah, there's a little bit in the crushed up can, and I'm looking at here in the corner of my eye.
It was that kind of a performance, but if you are looking for an energy drink that can sustain you without the letdown, without a lot of the bad stuff, you get another energy drinks. Check out Celsius. Click on the banner ads at pewterreport.com or go to Celsius.com, use the store locator, find out where they're selling Celsius near you. Yeah. Scott, where do we start with this performance? I think we start right where you were just talking, actually, with the skill position players in this game and the offensive line. I mean, I don't want to hear anything about Tom Brady in this game. I don't want to hear anything. I know it wasn't his best game ever.
Right.
and most of that was fourth quarter, when he got frustrated and it was clear everybody else in the team had no interest in playing. Until then, he was fine in the first half. I mean, he was 17 to 20, 16 to 23 with 4 or 5 drops in the first half. Everybody else was ridiculous. I mean, I think can say what he wanted about coverage sacks, God, but some of those were immediate losses by Alex Kappa, Tristan Wirfs, Donovan Smith was on the ground
Ryan
3 or 4
Jensen.
times. Jensen was bad. He lost a rep. Marpet seemed fine, but everybody, I mean, if receivers didn't get open, drop balls before Godwin even went down. He had dropped a ball. Gronk had dropped 3 balls on the game. And like I said, there was another one he probably should have caught. Brady dropped a couple passes in this game. The young guys got in and they sucked. They were terrible. Darden slowed down on that route. He was supposed to get vertical on. Johnson sat down against man coverage instead of continuing to move in the middle of the field. Brady has to throw incomplete to him because he's not running his route the right way. I mean, honestly, from what I saw, Scotty, he was fine, but I didn't see him in the frame like the other guys. But geez, man, everybody on this offense except Brady and maybe Marpet, we'll see if I get to review the tape, was horrible throughout this game.
Yeah, just awful. And and Ronald Jones, to his credit, I thought Rojo did a pretty good job, and he had a couple of big runs in very limited
Brady
duties.
did get on him about running out of bounds on that third.
Okay, true, and well deserved,
But you're right, he did run. He had a couple good runs. I'll give him that.
But I mean, just these injuries, Chris Godwin.
Godwin with the knee. You don't know what it is, hyperextension, or is it worse than that? He was jogging on the sideline. He wanted to come back in, so that kind of good sign. Maybe we'll see, but he's going to be sore. Evans, a hamstring. This was weird. Evans must have got hurt before this catch, I'm thinking, because he was out of the game for like 4 plays in a row.
Then he came
Godwin
back,
out,
made the catch.
Made the catch, and then was out of play, came back into play, I think maybe, and then was out for the rest of the game, something like that. He just couldn't go with the hamstring. That's a bummer because that's plagued him in the past. Am I right about that, Scott?
Yeah, and the other thing too is, I mean, they lose Lavonte David, who was easily the best player on defense tonight, easily. In the second half to an injury. It looked like Pat O'Connor suffered a serious knee injury. He's a top special teams ace. I mean, they lost a lot of starters, as Bruce Arians said. He said 7 starters. I don't know if he lost 7, but I mean, when you factor in that AB wasn't out there and Brashad Perriman's a starter now, so I guess he wasn't out there either. So I think maybe Bruce is counting some ghosts that he wore in the game. But yeah, it was like a mash unit out there. And again, I think what's most disappointing is if you're Jalen Darden, man, if you're Keyshawn Vaughn, man, it's like this is your chance to be something more than a gunner, and it's like, I know he had one little run that happened at the end of the game and they're expecting a pass, little draw or whatever it was. But I mean,
dude, Keyshawn Vaughn can't even play. And
he can't.
We're getting to a point where we need to talk about if Jalen Darden can play.
I don't think he
can't run a punt back without falling over.
No,
he can't run a route without.
He can't run a route. No,
I mean, he's slowing down. He's against Lattimore. He's slowing down, looking for the ball. It's like, dude, run. The ball's going to be out there. Then he gets stacked by Lattimore late in the game. He's not open at all. Anybody talking about Brady from this game out of their mind, I think.
Tyler Johnson, he's a possession receiver. He can't run. How many times did he catch the ball, start to make a move, and get ankle tackle? I mean, he just does not have the speed.
He's just not an athlete. And he's fine. I think Tyler Johnson's a fine complementary number 4 for a team that schemes people open, like the Rams or the 49ers. He could probably do wide receiver 3 stuff because he makes tough catches in the middle of the field. He's a fine player, but if he's your primary option, you're screwed. In this offense, no, you're screwed, dude. If he's your primary option.
John, can I blow your mind for a second?
Yes.
Where was OJ Howard?
I know. I want to see how many snaps he even played.
Where was OJ Howard?
Clearly held, but had another pass go off his hands too. He might have dropped one. I mean,
I'm just saying, where's OJ Howard?
Yeah, he's gone. He's
gone. He's
gone. And
he's a
I know
ghost.
I know you got to jump on another interview here really quick for a few minutes, and I'll probably run this thing solo while I'm waiting for anybody else to jump in here with us. But yeah, it's this has been this supporting cast for the Bucs has been probably the most disappointing part of the season. Obviously Godwin, Evans, and AB are fine, and Gronk was horrible in this game, but he is most of the time fine. But I mean, could anyone have expected Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Perryman outside of that one play, like Cam Brate, OJ Howard, everybody down the depth chart at running back other than basically Fournette. Even when Gio was out there, I mean, he's fine as a receiver, I guess. Not the pass protector you expected. Like all of the depth that we said that the Bucs have has pretty much all sucked all year. Like they've just all pretty much been bad or been like average to below average. Like maybe not just objectively bad. Like Keyshawn Vaughn is horrible. Like I don't know if he can play in the league. Like this literally you've been waiting all year for this chance and you drop a pass, you can't even stand up on your route. You're falling over while Brady's trying to get the ball to you. I mean, just an absurd performance. Like it was like that with Darden. Like, I mean, you got two options in the passing game that literally can't even stand up. And like people want to talk about, I know people are going to because it's a quarterback and you always do, but people are going to talk about Brady. Like you heard Arians in the presser, and Arians, he'll criticize Brady, but he was just immediately like, this was just complete incompetence from our skill position players. They weren't getting open. We dropped 100 passes. Like this was just a joke of a performance by those guys. And it was. And yeah, it's hard. You lose Evans and Godwin in a game and you're already down Perryman and AB. It's hard for sure. Bucs weren't going to score 30 points in this game. If they ran this simulation of life 100 times, they weren't going to score 30 points with those guys out. It just wasn't going to happen. But you could have scored 10 points, which would have won you the game. You could have scored that. Just absurd. Like, no points? Come on. And it was there. I mean, that's the most frustrating part. They drove into Saints territory enough times to win the game. Suckett missed a field goal. Terrible. That can't happen. Brady, I know he got to get away because two guys got beat right away on the O-line, Kappa and Wirfs. And he had to get out of the pocket. And, he fumbles when he gets hit from behind trying to make a play. And you got to be careful. You got to protect the football, no question. But come on. Like, if you're starting the critical analysis of that play with Brady, you're missing the mark. Like, yeah, hold on to the ball for sure when you get hit from behind by a defensive end. But look, like two of your guys lost immediately up front. Immediately. Like, it's just, again, you can't, if you start your analysis, Brady, you're just tripping. Like you just are. Like it just can't happen. Like, and we do whole videos about how he could have been better in the second half against the Bills, but this just ain't on him. Like it just ain't. So just move on to another topic, honestly, if that's what you're going to come with, because this was just so embarrassing. I mean, Cam Brate, how many times he had an opportunity to make a play? Brady hits him on an unbelievably well-placed ball, low throw with tight coverage on what would have been a big gain into Saints territory. He can't come up with the football. Brady hits him again on a quick out, past the first down marker, and they're trying to drive before the half, get points on the board, drops the ball, can't finish the play. I mean, it was like that all night. Brady had two that he should have caught. Gronk had 3 or 4 that he should have caught. Tyler Johnson dropped one. Godwin dropped one. Vaughn dropped one. And that's not even counting the amount of times guys should have made plays with the ball in their hands and just didn't. I mean, Tyler Johnson can't outrun what's left of Bradley Roby while he's running. He's got full speed up ahead and he's getting caught by the ankles. First punt of the game for the Bucs. Leonard Fournette can't beat Carl Granderson. That's a defensive end. You can't beat him out in the flat to pick up with Brady delivers you a ball in stride. You can't get upfield and make that play. That's just not good enough, man. Like, it's just not good enough. We appreciate Robert with the $5 super chat. This is great stuff, Robert. Appreciate all the super chats, honestly, for the show. And I know a bunch of people in here already. Hey, hit the thumbs up if you can. Hit the like button on the show if you can. Pewter Report Podcast. We greatly appreciate that. Obviously, when you do that, it helps us out a ton, no question about it. So yeah, hit that like button and get us some love here on the show late at night. That helps out our YouTube algorithm a good bit here. And we appreciate this $5 super chat. Robert Farmer, $5 says Rojo was out on a crucial 3rd and 1 because he was gassed. Yeah, let's just talk about this for a second. Oh my gosh. Like, you got a 3rd and 1, gotta have it in a 6-0 game against the Saints with the division on the line. First of all, Rojo's been waiting for this opportunity the whole season, right? Right? Guess not, because he's not even in the game. He's gassed. He's got to have a blow on 3rd and 1. Was it 2 plays before that? Unreal. Then you decide your 4th string running back, who has been nothing but an abject disaster since he entered the league. I mean, this dude had 11 targets last year and dropped 4 passes, fumbled twice. You can't even make up how bad Keyshawn Vaughn has been. I mean, he's been as bad as any player that's ever played running back when you look at his small sample size. I mean, it's just that horrible. That's the guy on 3rd and 1 with his 10th carry of the season? Just come on, get out of here with that, man. I can't even believe that call. I can't believe it. And I can't believe the personnel usage either. It's so bad. Like, Keyshawn Vaughn? Have you watched this dude? He can't stand up. Giving him the ball on 3rd and 1 with the game on the line. Drive me crazy. Not that they had a lot of options to go to. I mean, you have to get incredibly unlucky in a football game to lose Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Leonard Fournette, and then at the end of the game, Lavonte David. Pat O'Connor also hurt. Bruce Arians had no real update on those injuries after the game. So we'll just have to see as those guys progress, how that thing looks and everything. But it was incredibly unlucky. There's no doubt about that, in my opinion. It was an extremely unlucky game for the Bucs. It was a kind of a perfect storm of errors just over and over and over again for them. And so, again, there is always that part of it in games. Like, if they played the Saints, 100 times, you're always thinking about like, what's most like, is it likely that they drop, 8 or 9 passes again, mess up routes the degree that they did, lose Godwin and Evans in the beginning of this game, lose Fournette, who's already playing hurt. Probably not. Probably doesn't happen. But this was still really bad. You've got to be able to overcome some things. And again, like I said, they drove into Saints territory. They had opportunities. There's no one to blame but themselves. They had all those enough chances to win an ugly game, to win a 10-9 game, to a 10-6 game. And they just didn't take advantage of it. I mean, Suckup deserves plenty of blame. He misses a 48-yard. You got to make that kick. No question about it. Again, O-line loses, Wirfs loses immediately. Brady gets sacked, and you're pushed back further for the kick. Still a very makeable kick. He's got to make it. Bruce was quick to point out that how the kicking game let them down. Bradley Pinion has been just horrible. He had a good punt inside the 5, got to like the 2 or 1 yard line, but he can't be consistent. He just can't. He's just struggling. I mean, 30 some yard punts a couple times tonight when they needed big kicks, and ultimately a bad punt led to the Saints a field goal to go take that 9-0 lead. Not that it would have mattered. I guess they didn't even need that, but that was demoralizing too, because you were looking at a 2-score deficit at that point in the game. So Taysom Hill was obviously bad. He is bad, and the Saints offense was bad. We knew they were going to be bad, and the Bucs defense they gave up 2 plays early that they shouldn't have gave up, and probably went back. But obviously they played really well, and we'll talk more about them as we go here. But I know people want to put some talk about Byron Leftwich, and this is hard. Like, I don't agree with everything Leftwich did. Obviously, my rant about Vaughn aside, but I cannot levy the most amount of blame when you lose like this. Everyone, you can talk about blaming everybody. Like, to be honest, like in some moment of the game. But again, this is difficult because this offense is predicated on having receivers that can get open, and when the Saints play man coverage, yes, I think he could have gotten a little more creative at times, maybe to make something happen. But when the Saints play man coverage to the degree that they do with the personnel that they have, it's just very hard when your receivers cannot create space and separation at all. And then to top it off, late in that game, you're down 9-0 and you're trying to throw the ball every down. Now you've got their pass rush teeing off, and you're in a situation you don't want to be in. So, but in the first half, no, I just feel like, Scott, in the first half, the Bucs just didn't execute, period, on offense. Like, I don't have a huge gripe against the play calling in the first half. And even when they lost all their guys, they said, okay, we're going to run the ball more. Everybody's like, oh, if you run the ball more, you can win. Well, this game was right there all the game, and they ran 21 times for 118 yards, and they averaged 5.6 yards per carry. And it just didn't matter. Like, it didn't make any difference because they got into Saints territory 4 or 5 times and came away with no points.
I might have said this when I came on at halftime during the Pewter Game Day show. It seemed to me, John, that we know that the Saints don't fear the Buccaneers, right? They just don't. They they feel like they have the Bucs number, and by God, they do. In the regular season, there's no doubt about it. But right from the get-go, even though it was an incomplete pass, not an interception, that aggressive play by Marshawn Lattimore just seemed to light a fire under the Saints. It just seemed to give them a little extra boost of confidence, maybe that they didn't even need. But it just, from that first play on, the Saints just said, like, we've got these guys. Even though that pick didn't count, we'll get another one at some point in time.
Yeah.
The Saints just didn't flinch. And I think for the Buccaneers to really take it to the Saints, they had to score an early knockout in this game, because from an offensive standpoint, the Saints, and you saw it, 9 points, they don't have the firepower to keep up. Yep. But I think the Saints defense just got so much confidence early on from those 3 and outs that they just said, like, we got this. And they did.
Yeah, and I didn't even talk about that play. Jeez, I mean, Tyler Johnson running like the worst slant route of all time against press coverage, just gets bodied up basically. And you can call it, should have been a flag if you want, but I mean, just play physical, play tough, create separation, like get your body in position to make a play. And, you know, Tyler Johnson is not an outside receiver. That's another part that makes him a tough fit right now in Tampa Bay with the way that they use their outside receivers. He just doesn't play that way. So
I listen, I'll tell you what, I was just on News Channel 8 just doing an interview with Dan Lucas, and I said everything that I said here at the start of the show, and just hearing myself say it again, this is an indictment on some of these young players, because this is your opportunity. And I mean, Scotty Miller, OJ Howard, Jalen Darden, Tyler Johnson, Sneak Vaughn, I mean, those guys did not show up. And I'll tell you what, you can believe that Tom Brady is going to be throwing a hell of a lot of passes to Antonio Brown. He's going to go back to Gronk. It wasn't Gronk's night, but Gronk's got a lot of history. This was an aberration for Gronk. Right. This is, you know,
it sucks that it came on a night where they needed him the most.
Yes,
for sure.
Agreed.
But I would say Gronkowski's maybe been the best tight end in the NFL this season. Obviously, Kelsey Andrews just had unreal games, so everybody's going to react to that strongly. But yeah, I mean, obviously those guys made up some ground. But Gronkowski's been unbelievable when he's played this season.
Yes,
but tonight was
there's no doubt. But I'll just say this: when you've got all of those guys that have a chance to earn Tom Brady's trust, right? And you can even throw Rashard Perriman in that same category until he made that play.
Yeah.
You even heard Brady tell Tracy Wolfson after the Bills game that, he earned our trust. Well, here's the thing. Rashard Perriman already had Bruce Arians' trust. Shit, he put him out there for 50 plays in that game, right? Or something like that, right?
The game before the Falcons game.
The game before, exactly. Like, he already had Arians. I mean, Arians probably going in there to Tom, why aren't you throwing a BP? And the guy's like, every time I do, he can't catch the ball, right?
So drops.
Right. It's not about Bruce Arians. It's about Tom Brady. He's got to earn the trust. And so when Scotty Miller, who's fast, can't separate, when Tyler Johnson, who's slow, can't separate, Keyshawn Vaughn has a perfect pass, bounce off his hands, can't catch, Jalen Darden could not run a route to save his life. I mean, Tom Brady's not throwing you the ball. You are essentially a decoy next week at Carolina. That's what you are, because the ball is going to be going to AB. If you have any Antonio Browns on your fantasy, you better play him next week. AB is getting some balls. Gronk is getting balls. Rojo might get a ball. He caught his tonight. So, he's got a little bit of trust from Brady now. But
I can't believe Vaughn dropped that throw. It was just the softest. Like, literally, Brady threw that like, I know you suck, but here you go. Like, that's how he threw it. And I mean, just amazing. Like, you only going to get a couple chances. Just, I can't.
Here's this is kind of the damning thing, right? Because it's like, Jason Light and the personnel department, they made these draft picks, but the problem is this team was so loaded that you don't even know what you have, right? And they're kind of counting on Vaughn to be maybe the number 2 back next year, right? I mean, if you bring Fournette back, maybe Bernard. I mean, at some point, they're expecting Vaughn to elevate to number 3 to number 2 at some point, right? But it's like when you give him an opportunity and he doesn't do that, I mean, it knocks him back down a peg. And the same with Darden. It's like I have not seen anything that excites me from Jalen Darden this year outside of one punt return.
Oh no. Yeah,
I
it's been
haven't
pretty
seen
bad.
anything from Jalen
Yeah.
Darden outside of one punt return that excites me.
Right. And obviously the season's going to be won or lost by the availability and play
Of the
of
veterans,
guys. Yeah, of better the guys than were out there tonight. But it does suck. I mean, going into the year, we really thought like those 4, 5, 6 spots for Bucs at receiver were going to be better than they've been. And they just haven't been. And we really thought the 2, 3 spots at tight end were going to be better. And they just haven't been good at all, So they don't have the depth that we thought they did. They are kind of, they have Gronk and they have those top 3 receivers. And after that, it's a pretty big drop off right now between them and everybody else. I still believe in Scotty. I just don't think, like, to me, Scotty, like him being able to get open wasn't the issue. The issue is what Scotty does is so complimentary, right? Like his ability is so complimentary. When you don't have the feature pieces, Scotty's value goes way down. So I don't have like as big a gripe against him. Like, for example, he's coming in for Evans in this game and he's playing Evans' role. So the Saints are just continuing to defend like they would defend Evans. Like Miller's not going to be open. He should draw coverage for the other guy. So like, that's where I get off Scotty's back a little bit.
Yeah.
But the rest of these guys, I think we're seeing the limitations of Tyler Johnson. Jalen Darden excited us way more in camp, and it just has not worked out that way in the season. But even more disappointing has been Cam Brate. I think OJ Howard, whatever, he can't get on the field. I don't know if they just like Brate more. I'd rather see Howard try and do something in a game like this.
I would too. I actually disagree with you there because I see what Cam Brate is. He's a 30-year-old tight end who's literally just about done. Okay. Yeah. I think it's actually more disappointing that OJ Howard can't beat Cam Brate out at this point in time.
Yeah.
To see targets that to me is just
can he not? Do they just think Brate is or the coach is like stuck on Brate? I mean, OJ wasn't horrible when he played. I mean, obviously neither of them are great blockers.
If you go back to the Philadelphia game, they designed like tight end screens for him. He had a touchdown pass.
Pretty good.
It's like, where's that guy?
Yeah, I'm like, he's the fact that he can't even play in a game like this or can barely play.
That's what I'm saying.
Remember, he was like the best guy in camp last year. It's just crazy how fast the group feels like it's fallen off at the depth. I think Evans and Godwin are having great seasons. Gronk's having a great season. AB was having an unreal season when he's healthy. So those 4 guys are everything we hoped they would be. Yeah. And then some, probably.
Right.
Everybody else has been more disappointing this year.
No, there's no doubt about it.
When you lose all those guys in a game, it's obviously going to be hard. I'm not discounting that. Again, I don't think they were going to score 30 points. But they could have scored 10.
Yeah,
won the game.
They needed 10, John. They needed 10. That's all they needed. And Ryan Suckup, you picked a bad day to miss a kick, man. And listen, John, and I'll tell you something, dude. We got to talk about special teams because Bradley Pinion's punts have not been good. They brought in another punter. I know he does kickoffs, and he's a fantastic kickoff guy, but that's almost a luxury. I'm just saying, Keith Armstrong, special teams coordinator,
buddy.
Don't know. Don't know if you're here in 2022.
I mean, Bruce ain't gonna fire any of his people.
I know Bruce is loyal, but I mean, special teams this year have not been good.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
The return game has been bad. The coverage units have been okay. There was a return tonight down the sidelines.
Coverage unit was bad.
Grant Stewart's been actually good. He had a 15-yard.
You have to think about this too, though, Scott. Remember, this is a team that allows as few kickoffs as basically anybody in the NFL. Right. So you don't really see their kickoff coverage, and when you do, it's bad usually.
That's right. Yeah, you wrote a story on it. It was the worst last year.
Was the worst in NFL history. Now they only allowed like 13 returns all year, but still ridiculous.
The average.
The average. And then punt return, they hardly ever punt. I mean, tonight they punted all game long. It was like their best.
John, this just occurred to me. You're a spoiled brat. You're a spoiled brat. Well, welcome to the Buccaneers shit show that I had to watch for a decade. Games like this.
There's games like
this. This game
you're
right
unfazed.
here.
I'm like, this was the worst game I ever watched. You're like,
it's up there, but it's definitely not the worst. No.
It was pretty bad. I mean,
it might be in the top 20, but it's right.
We appreciate $5 super chat by Robert. Again, he says, I loved when Bruce said we left Vaughn in for pass situation. I mean, you have to play Vaughn. Like I'm not totally hating on that. Like I get that when you lose 2 running backs, you have to play him. Now you really have to think about like how quickly can Kenyon Barner be better than this guy because this guy can't play. Like, Yeah,
Right.
yeah. He probably comes out against the Panthers and does like 2 great things. I get it. Like,
Yeah.
I know how it
Well,
goes,
and
but like,
yeah,
it's not gonna change my mind.
I was actually going to say, does Kenyon Barnard do kick returns next week for Jalen Darden? You know,
See,
Darden's
Bruce
gonna
loves
focus.
Darden. Oh, does focus on wide receiver stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm not drinking the Darden Kool-Aid.
Oh, I'm definitely not drinking the Darden Kool-Aid, but Bruce is clearly. I mean, if you ask anytime he talks about it, he's like, I think he's done a great job. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Like, obviously not a receiver. He's criticized Darden receiver, but Bruce thinks he's fine in return. So I mean, whatever. Like he probably should have fumbled one tonight, and then he fielded that one crazy out of no. Like, it's actually the biggest miracle in a game that went the way this game went. That he like didn't make a worse mistake. Like this game, I said this during the live stream, it had all the makings of like a great like of Darden like muffing a punt deep in his own territory, and the Saints just getting a field goal to go 9-0. It ended up obviously being Pinion who screwed him up and gave the Saints a short field punt. But it had all the makings for that. Darden was that bad in this game and didn't get it done. Scott, we gotta mention a few of our wonderful sponsors before this pod gets totally off the rails here, as we bring in some more of the Pewter Report staff in a second here to give their commentary. But our friends over at livinggolflife.com, they got some great stuff over on their site, livinggolflife.com, polos and hats. Make sure you check those out and give them a follow on Instagram as well to see some of the new stuff that they've got in their line and that they've got going on, especially if you're looking for gifts this holiday season as well. Great place to stop as well. And then our friends at Pin Chasers as well, bowling, food, and fun. Scott, the food, Pin Chasers, you've been, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this food is the real deal.
Johnny, it is. And it's the craziest thing, right? Because when you think, hey, honey, where you want to go for dinner tonight? Let's go to a bowling alley, right? I mean, that never comes out of your mouth. Except the thing is, hey, babe, you want to go bowling tonight? Yes. Where are we going to go out to eat first? No, we're actually going to eat at the bowling alley because the food is surprisingly good. It doesn't taste like bowling alley food. We're talking about some fantastic pizza, Philly cheesesteaks, great salads. I mean, the food is one of the reasons why I actually go to Pin Chasers, because I can do both there. I can bowl and have a meal. It's not like I've got to go out and drop a ton of money at a restaurant beforehand and then go bowling with the wife or the kids. It's all there at one time. Like John said, bowling, food, fun. Bowling leagues, corporate parties, corporate team building, fundraisers, the Pewter Report, Bowling League can all be found at the Midtown location. Now, the great thing about Pin Chasers, they've got 3. The Midtown location, which is kind of in the heart of Tampa, right by One Buccaneer Place. They also have a location off the Veterans in Tampa, and also over by my neck of the woods out in Zephyr Hills in East Pasco. Make sure you mention Pewter Report when you go there to bowl. You can visit pinchasers.net to find more information.
It's great stuff from our friends over at Pin Chasers. Now we've got our friend Casey Hudson of PewterReport.com on the show as well. Casey, you were at this debacle. I'm so sorry. How are you?
I'm so upset that I left my house today. That's what's happening.
You're not the only one. I'm thinking Tom Brady might have thought that too.
Yeah,
yeah,
he's out here.
Definitely pissed that he left his house today. But I mean, to start caffeinating at 4 p.m. and preparing for this, it's just kind of rough. But even the energy at the stadium, I mean, it felt like a twilight zone. These 8 p.m., 8:25, whatever you want to call them, games, they're rough as is. So then to have that play out the way that it did is just
no touchdowns,
horrendous.
9 points. It was a slog fest. We actually do need to talk about the Bucs defense because they did play pretty well. I mean, they obviously the Saints defense or the Saints offense is terrible, and they've pretty much struggled in most of their games this year. So you knew it wasn't going to be like a super high scoring game by the Saints offense and defense. But I mean, giving up 9 points is you gave up 2 explosive plays down the field. Which obviously you'd like to have back. The first play, SMB just gets beat and he can't get beat. But it was also an unreal throw by Taysom Hill. He's not made that throw in his career like one time. He came into this game 1 of 7 on 20+ air yard throws and 0 big time throws per PFF. And that's like been his whole career. He can't throw the ball down the field. Well, he hit 2 of them and he had a third one dropped in this game. So when it rains, it pours type of a moment. The second big play I just want to touch on really quickly because the middle of field safety is cutting that crossing route for the Saints on that play. Davis is actually giving, like, I know he kind of gets beat on the play, but he's kind of passing off that post pattern to Sean Murphy-Bunting, who's the opposite side corner. He's actually replacing in the middle of the field. So he follows that crosser across, and then the safety cuts the crosser, and SMB replaces the safety in the middle of the field there.
But he really didn't.
I was about to say.
Here's the thing. This is like kind of actually a good idea, but the Saints didn't do this on purpose. But I've kind of thought this before. If you underthrow that pattern, you actually like can't defend it really. But most of the time, everybody just tries to put it out there on the post for the receiver can catch it running. But that's where the corner's coming to. Hill didn't do this on purpose.
Taysom Hill's like
so badly that as SMB is running to the middle of the field location, because he's just kind of trying to get to a landmark to defend what would be normally a post pattern in that ground combination. It's like a back shoulder underthrown post.
There's just a back shoulder post pattern. That's fantastic.
And like, this is what I mean when I tell you, like, when it rains, it pours. There's like no way. Like, you just get screwed sometimes. Like, I'm not even trying to rip SMB for that play. Like, you just can't do much about that kind of unluckiness. Like, it just happens. And obviously they did the best they could with it. But defense was pretty good tonight, right, Casey?
They were. There were a couple moments, though, where Carlton Davis kind of looked at SMB and threw his hands up, kind of like there was a miscommunication back there, or you got to do better, or you got to get to your mark faster, something. But they have stepped up game by game in at least the last 3-4 games, which is fantastic. But for some reason, when it comes to the Bucs, and Scott will probably feel this pain more than anyone else, it's rare to see the offense and the defense being consistent and both executing. It's always kind of like the defense comes in and saves the day, or the offense puts enough points on the board to where what the defense does doesn't matter. It's so hard for both sides of the ball to just execute.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's happened against the Bears this year. And then in the Super Bowl, those are really the only two games that I can say were kind of like a complete game, right? A 38-3 blowout of Chicago here. And then the Super Bowl 31-9. I mean, every other game you've had one side of the ball have just a letdown and just not perform. And it's been very disappointing that this team has not been able to put together an entire game. And I think the thing that's missing in this game, and while I want to give the defense props and 9 points in this day and age, in this modern day, I mean, this is almost like a Dungy ball game. This is like Buck ball back in the 90s I was watching. I was texting Warren Sapp saying, does this look familiar? This is like, this is like Buck ball from Dungy years gone by. But just no takeaways, right? That's
Andrew Adams. He had a chance.
Almost.
Had a big time drop, and it was costly because
he had room to run too.
Yeah, and at that point in time, it's still a 6-point game, right? And if that interception happens, if for some reason, well, it wouldn't have happened. Never mind. Sorry, it wouldn't have happened because the young players that were played like crap after the stars went down, and so this game was over. It didn't.
The only hope was like Adams kind of circling back to what we talked about on Thursday. The secondary needs to get more interceptions. They're just the takeaways. There has to be more action on that end. But then John and I talked about the wide receiver 3 position. None of those guys were accountable tonight. It was just like the minute that Evans and Godwin went out the door, there was no accountability. There was nobody who could help execute. There was nobody who could get the job done. Now, for a team that preaches next man up mentality, that is a very, very sad revelation.
That's right.
That took place on the field tonight.
Casey, you nailed it. John, I want to get your thoughts on this, and also you too, Casey. Will Williams says can't beat simple man coverage. It's not hard to figure out. That's why AB is the best weapon we have, and I agree, right? Because AB is the creator. He is the guy that can create his own shot. He doesn't need to have something schemed for him. But at the same time, guys, isn't this like a flaw in Bruce Arians' offense because there is not as much scheming to get guys open. We're counting on you to beat your man one-on-one in those situations. And when you're as uber talented as Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and every other night, but tonight for Gronkowski and also AB, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
But when you don't have those stars, there's no help from the OC. There's no help from Leftwich to create for these guys.
It's a flaw in some ways. It's a flaw if you lose everybody in the middle of a game. That's what I'd say. I think if you have a week to prepare differently, I think you can scheme. You can go to, we're going to use some more of these calls since this is our personnel. Yeah. It's a little bit harder when you haven't practiced that way all week and you've practiced what you're going to do with your stars. all week instead. You don't expect to lose everybody in the same game.
Sure.
So I think that will make it better moving forward if they have to do that. Now, I'm not saying it'll be great.
Yeah.
If Godwin and Evans miss a couple weeks, it's going to be.
Guys, we have some breaking news. Ian Rappaport from NFL Network just tweeted out, though he was ruled out for tonight, the initial belief is that Bucs wide receiver Chris Godwin did not suffer a major injury. Source said he'll have tests tomorrow, but based on the early diagnosis, Godwin sprained his MCL. That means he'll miss time with an MRI to determine when he'll be back. So he'll get the MRI maybe tomorrow, depends on how much swelling there is, because if there's swelling, that MRI will maybe be later this week, Tuesday or Wednesday, after the swelling goes down. So the good news initially is they're suggesting it might be a sprained MCL. That's typically at the earliest a 2-week injury, more realistically a 3 to 4 to 5 week injury. So we may not see Chris Godwin until the playoffs. That could be
unbelievable. It would just be that. I mean, the way he was hit, obviously.
Yeah.
But
I love this guy, John C. He said something about he thought that they would have gotten more tight end heavy during the game. Now, it's funny because I actually tweeted that at some point. I was like, all right, the tight ends are going to be the guys that have to bring this home for the Bucs. But I don't want to crap on anyone, but Cameron Brate and OJ Howard, to think that they don't have a role on this team, whether it's, significant or not, the fact that they can't be put in that game to get some yardage or get this team down the field blows my mind, because when they had a guy like Jameis Winston at the helm, they were able to make certain plays. It wasn't the prettiest or, the greatest plays, but Cameron Brate was a lot more of a hell of a tight end a couple years ago versus what he does now. I don't know what those plays were in tonight's game with those drops and whatnot, but yeah, I mean, I just kind of wanted to touch on what John C said, because I thought the same thing. I thought that, okay, at this point, we're going to rely on tight ends. If Gronk's getting covered too much or he just couldn't get it together, whatever the case may be, there were some calls that I thought were questionable where it should have been a pass interference, but a guy like Cameron Brate should be able to step in and help and create some relief and get that team down the field. And their tight end position doesn't exist without Rob Gronkowski on this team. And
I agree. And it was not good tonight. Guys, I'm going to dip out. I'm going to bring in Matt Montero, who's going to carry on with Casey and John. So have a great night, Bucs fans, and welcome in Matt Montero. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I mean, you look at this game and how everything unfolded.
Matt's like, I'm doing horrible. What are you talking about?
Look, I'm not at the stadium still. Normally, I do the post game press conference.
I got out of there as soon as I could.
I had to get out of there. It was. I think the best way to describe it, honestly, was it was demoralizing. The way the Bucs lost, it was demoralizing. And I actually said, too, I was thinking about it. While it's a little bit different, the way the Bucs lost this game reminds me very much on how they lost last season on Sunday Night Football to the Saints. I totally get it. Different score, 38-3. Tonight they lose 9-0. But it was that same feeling of that the Bucs just could not get anything going. They clearly couldn't. They didn't score any points. And that same just bad feeling in your gut that you got from last season's game is exactly how I feel, and I would imagine a lot of Bucs fans feel tonight. It was just a demoralizing performance with an opportunity to clinch the division and still be in the race for the number 1 seed.
And obviously it would have been worse if they'd lost this way with their starters in there, but obviously now it's more concerning because of the people that they lost in the game. That certainly hurts so much, I think, because of that. And now you're moving forward and you obviously want to win, the division, and you want to be able to clinch that thing. And we'll look at scenarios and get all that up for you on the site here in the coming hours, I should say, probably. But all that stuff will be yet to be determined. But it's when you lose this way, no question, you get swept by the Saints, you win the division, sweets or whatever, it doesn't matter. Go win the Super Bowl now. Like that has to be their mentality. Like it would have been fine if they beat the Saints and it's fine. Now it's like, okay, you beat the Panthers or the Jets. No offense, Matt, to get this thing done. Like it doesn't feel the same way. There's no question about it. I don't care what they tell you, it's not going to feel the same way. And so the goal has always been bigger. Casey, just to touch on what you were talking about, the tight ends. In the middle of the game, there was some opportunities. Like they had the tight ends out there. They were trying to go 12 and 13 personnel and throw the ball to those guys. And, you saw Howard one off his hands, and maybe he was held. I looked like he was. We never got a replay on it. Thanks a lot, Sunday Night Football. Awesome stuff. And then, Great drop too. Had one sliding catch. Would have been a tough catch. I don't know if they'll count as a drop or not, but one you should make. Great location by Brady on that throw with no window. And then he had another one where he dropped it, where they said he caught it and then dropped it on the third. So yeah, like those are the guys. You're right. You needed those guys to step up once the wide receiver group became depleted. Then they were so bad. And then you get down late in the game, you have to throw every play. You need more speed on the field. You got to go to more wide receiver personnel packages. But yeah, there's just one of the hard things, and maybe it's the drawback of the offense too. They don't really teach. Now Gronk's done a little bit of it, but Howard and Brate, they don't really run the wide receiver routes for this team at all. Right. So they're not versatile enough to do some of those things in or they don't use them that way anyway. And so it's something I've asked Arians about before is, is Howard going to learn? Could he play like X if you need him in a game, or could he move around and do some other things for it? And he's kind of poo-pooed that. And so not really wanted that to happen. So yeah, it was frustrating to watch that though. Let's talk a little bit about the defense, Casey, from what we saw tonight. And we're actually going to hold off and do game balls presented by Manscaped. We'll do those, I think, tomorrow on the show we're going to do, but just early thoughts defensively on what stood out to you. I think the Bucs had 9 tackles for loss and 2 sacks in this game. Alvin, the most amazing part of this whole Bucs own or Saints own the Bucs thing is that Alvin Kamara has just been an absolute zero for the Saints. Almost every time they lose, Kamara does nothing. I mean, he has 11 carries for 18 yards tonight. Taysom Hill, 11 carries for 33 yards tonight. They didn't have a run over 9 yards tonight. Ingram had 9 carries for 10 yards. Bucs run defense was absolutely phenomenal in this game. 31 carries for 61 yards, Casey. That's crazy.
Oh, it's insane because if you look at any of the games this season that the Saints have won, Kamara has over 100 running yards. And if Taysom Hill's involved, he has 70 plus yards as a quarterback, which is just insane. So what I will say is that I loved what I saw out of the Bucs defense tonight, honestly. I mean, I was quite happy with them all around. They've probably looked the best that they have as a unit from top to bottom. Lavonte David, though, this guy, I mean, everything that he did on the field tonight, obviously before he ended up getting off, was just you could tell that he really stepped into that leadership role 10 times more this evening, knowing that it was going to be needed. And the conduction out there, the executions, it all went very well. Even Devin White was doing a lot better and not being so, rowdy on the outside of it all. After doing certain plays, he, kind of got his head back in the game. So if this defense can stick around with this, and then obviously the guys that come back and heal up, and if they can build off of that, that'd be a bright spot down the stretch. But yeah, very impressed with the defense. Joe Tryon almost had a sack, but the only thing that was going through my mind with that,
got one, yeah.
Oh, we did get it? Okay, so the only thing going through my mind with that is
right,
just
he could have had multiple others, yeah.
Exactly. There was just a few other ones that I'm just thinking about his interview with Scott, and I'm like, okay, at least this is the kind of guy who knows what direction he needs to go in and how he needs to do it. So you can expect better things down the stretch, hopefully. But okay, yeah. So at least he got that sack. But
this was interesting though, because in the past he missed tackles. Tonight he didn't. I don't think he missed the sack at all. I think he just the ball was thrown as he got there, right, Matt? He was getting there, but just as he got there, the ball was thrown, or he forced several incompletions too with pressure. He was really good.
Yeah, he was really using his speed to his advantage. I thought the Bucs did a great job of, Casey, you hit the nail on the head. I really thought Lavonte David and Devin White were, 2 of the best defensive players on the field for the Bucs. And John, you're talking about how the Saints weren't able to run the ball at all. Some of the runs that Taysom Hill had were those designed power plays with him just running the ball right at the start. I thought the Bucs did a great job of, when it was a passing designed play, they kept Taysom Hill in the pocket. They really didn't let him scramble around at all or anything like that. And you go into any game, I don't care who you're playing. If you allow 9 points and not even allow a touchdown, you should win that. I would have said 100 times out of 100 before this game, but now I'll lower it to 99.
You should win 100 times.
Yeah. So 99 out of 100 times, you're going to win that game. Like you said, Casey, Lavonte David, Devin White, I thought were great. And I also think for the style that the Saints play on offense with Taysom Hill as their quarterback, you have to be ready for the run. You have to be ready up at the line of scrimmage. This was the perfect game for Jordan Whitehead to come back. We obviously know how good he is at safety with stopping the run. I thought he did a great job. He had 8 tackles in the game. I believe that was, that was about tied for second highest on the team. Anytime he was up the line of scrimmage, he was making plays. He had a tackle for a loss. There was times too he was in the backfield and he didn't necessarily make the tackle, but because he was there to stop everything in its tracks, then other defensive linemen and other players on the Bucs defense were able to clean it up and get the stop. So a lot of encouraging things from this defense. Granted, the Saints aren't really going to push the ball down the field in this iteration of their offense. But, like JTS played well. The linebackers did a great job when they need to be the best players on the field going up against this Saints offense. And, the story really is not what the defense didn't do, but obviously the offense not being able to score.
Yeah. I think you guys nailed the top 3 performers there. I mean, that was Lavonte, JTS, and
it was
Jordan
vintage. It felt like, and I'm not saying that Lavonte David is washed or anything like that, because that's not the case, but this felt like a vintage Lavonte David from a couple seasons ago. He forced the fumble early in that game. He got the sack. He was just always involved, it felt like, on every single play. And that's,
I think that's the perfect way to say the vintage part. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's the fact that he was involved in every play versus kind of hearing his name here and there or seeing him do something here and there. It was like everything tonight Lavonte David's name was attached to in terms of success on the defense, just about.
Yeah, and that's obviously what the Bucs need. Now, he's a foot injury, and so we'll see what that injury is moving forward, but they need him to be at that kind of a level. And when a team wants to run the football, he can be. When he's in coverage, the way that they use him in coverage, it's just hard for him to be more impactful in terms of making plays on the ball, things like that. But, man, he was unbelievable tonight. He played such a good game. Whitehead, Adams, honestly, in run support, and he drops that pick if he makes that play. But, coverage otherwise, other than those 2 big plays, was really pretty good all night. I mean, there was really very few issues. Callaway did have a 100-yard game. That just kind of totally crept up on me.
That was it. It was those 2 plays. It was those 2 plays to Callaway, and that was essentially it. That really made the difference.
Yeah, I know they hit him with a 17-yarder later. So, I mean, they got a couple chunks. But, again, it was a really good performance by David. They got pressure on Taysom Hill, too, a number of times. I give Hill credit. He actually made 3 of his best throws under pressure when he'd been the worst quarterback throwing under pressure in the NFL going into this game per PFF. It's kind of one of those perfect storms again. Like, you play the 100 times, Taysom's probably going to throw it to you a couple more times than just the once, and it could try to changes things. But perfect storm, it's always a perfect storm against the Saints. Here's one of the most interesting parts of all of this. This could very well set up a matchup, a rematch. This could be a huge part in setting up a rematch between these 2 teams. I mean, the Saints, to finish off the season, if you look at their schedule, Dolphins, Panthers, Falcons, I mean, they can win all those games. Dolphins have played a little bit better. Falcons beat them obviously before, but they play Dolphins and Panthers at home, and then they go on the road to play the Falcons in the last week of the season. This could be a football team that finishes 10-7 and makes the playoffs to that 7 seed very easily. And the Bucs, we'll see what happens with the rest of the NFC. I think they're still the 2 seed right now. I haven't had a second to even look at any updated to see how everything else.
They were the 2 seed. They were a game ahead of Dallas, and then the Cardinals obviously lost today.
So they're tied with the Cardinals, but I don't know what the tiebreaker is with the Cardinals. I know they're ahead of Dallas. I think they still have the tiebreaker, so I think they're still the 2 seed. So right now, if the playoffs started, are they 3 seed? Let me look.
I thought they were the 2 seed.
I thought 2 as well.
I thought so too.
Also, should be noted that Dallas and Arizona play against each other in the last week of the regular season. So that could, just seeding wise, that's a big game, obviously, for the 3rd and 4th seed.
That is a good point. Let's see. This is updated, I believe, after the game here. So we'll see if we can get a look at what the seeding would be.
I think it stays the same because when the Cardinals lost on Monday to the Rams, the Bucs jumped up to the 2nd seed. So then nothing really changed because both teams lost and they lost the NFC team. So that wouldn't really change any of the.
This says the Cowboys are the 2 seed. Is that right?
I don't think that could be right.
How could they?
Hey, but as long as the Bucs avoid the Saints in the 1st round, I think.
I don't even care. I want them
to win.
The Saints aren't good. Like, I know they're good defensively, but if the Bucs have their dudes, they're winning this game. And there's no, like, you just can't trot out Taysom Hill and win. Like, you're just
some of it felt like bad play calling, because in certain moments, I feel like there just could have been a better play to be executed or better work with certain wide receivers. I think between you and Scott, you mentioned something earlier about these guys not just trying to, what did you guys say? Crap, because it stood out so much to me. Just trying to get their guy off of them. You guys refer to it a lot when it comes to Tyler Johnson, but there's got to be something. Yeah, thank you. But there's got to be something different. Like you've seen all season that he can't handle that situation. Why continue to put him in that situation and think that anything different is going to happen? And I don't know what they're seeing in practice, why they think that in a game time speed and a game time action that might play off. And then Keyshawn Vaughn, he's got to go. I need a whole new running back group, like an entire new group this draft.
Yeah.
No more of this.
Yeah.
No more. If you don't weigh at least 220 pounds, you cannot be rostered for the Tampa Bay Bucs. I'm not having
Get Keyshawn Vaughn, little backside out of here.
Yeah,
you said.
I was gonna say between Keyshawn Vaughn and the young guys at receiver that Bruce Arians pointed out to. Sure, they went into the game not really expecting to have to play in major moments, but this is the NFL and injuries can happen at any moment. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying the whole team, but those guys, Tyler Johnson, Jalen Darden, with all due respect, Scotty, and like Keyshawn Vaughn, when they got elevated into higher moments, they didn't look prepared. They didn't look like they were ready to, seize the moment and take that spotlight. Keyshawn Vaughn, 3rd and 1, gets stuffed at the line, drops that pass that literally went right into his hands. Sure, he wasn't probably expecting to play all of those snaps, but you have to be ready for that situation.
And that's the thing is like and maybe it's a little over, OCD of me, but with all the twists and turns and the injuries that have taken place with the Bucs this season, don't you think that they would be taking a little bit more precautionary measures in practice to be like, if this happens, kind of having a couple more backup scenarios, even removing injuries from the situation, this crazy life that we live in called COVID? I would have an extensive backup plan for my backup plan for my backup plan, which means everybody needs to be ready to get in there. But if I hear next man up mentality one more time and see that on the field, everybody's fired.
Who would have thought we'd be slammed the table for Rashad Perryman?
Oh man! I mean, tonight I'd have given my right arm for anybody who could tie their shoes tonight. To be honest, and I know it's up in the air if Perryman can do that or not, depending on the game. But he did enough that I would have taken him tonight.
I had a graphic just waiting because I was just waiting to praise Scotty Miller tonight. I had it archived, and then the play would happen, and it'd be like, "Oh, let me just tuck this away one more time," and then I'd have it up ready to go. Oh, nah, never mind.
No,
yet.
I think.
By the way, I was just going to say the Bucs are the 3 seed right now. Okay. Cowboys are the 2 seed because the head-to-head doesn't go into effect and up as a later tiebreaker. So it goes to conference record. The Cowboys have the superior conference record. You mentioned the Cardinals game obviously being a big one for Dallas. So right now they would be the 3 seed. They would be playing the 6 seed, which would be the 49ers. Do you think I'd rather play the Saints than the 49ers in the first round of the playoffs?
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I don't want to place Kyle Shanahan and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa. I'm sorry. I know it's more than a couple players and they have their weaknesses, but I'm not trying to face Kyle Shanahan with in a playoff atmosphere with the way that guy game plans. Like you have to totally scheme for a team you never play or see or like any of it. Like, I don't want to do that. Sorry. No.
Yeah.
I'd rather play the Saints. I'll take my chances with Taysom freaking Hill. Like Tom Brady with his dudes ain't losing 9-0 in the playoffs. Like it's not.
I think too, just something I want to comment on. It was such a trickle-down effect, and sure, it's all coulda, woulda, shoulda, and the scenarios kind of change and everything too. But Ryan Suckup missing that field goal in the first half, it either would have made it 3-3 or the Bucs would have been down 6-3. That changes things later in the game, like when Brady's scrambling and he's trying to get that first down when the Bucs were getting into the red zone. Maybe Brady doesn't try to do the extra effort and make a move on a defender trying to make a miss. Maybe he just takes the sack, settles for a field goal. You tie the game up at 6-6 right there versus losing the football and not scoring at all. I think there were so many cause and effect moments from that game, and the missed field goal was, in my opinion, a big part of it.
Yeah, missed field goal was a big part, but no question about it. Hey, we'll have more to break down on this game because tomorrow is going to be a day filled with further analysis of this one and looking at snap counts and getting up what Bruce Arians said on the site as well. So make sure you are subscribed to the Pewter Report TV channel on YouTube, Pewter Report podcast, and our all 22 film rooms as well. We'll be putting up some of those this week to try and analyze this one further and figure out all the things that went wrong outside of the obvious, the injuries and the drops and so on and so forth. We'll take as good a look at it as we can for y'all, but definitely a super disappointing night to be a Bucs fan. The injuries will be, keep it locked, man. PewterReport.com. We're going to have as many updates as we can get up for you on the injuries as quickly as we can get them and see what the prognosis is for a lot of these players moving forward. But a lot is hanging in the balance right now for the Bucs. I'd say we'll find out what kind of team they are the last 3 weeks of the season, but we won't find out until the playoffs. This team is intent on not having us discover anything about them until that point in time. So we will go in pretty blind unless they lose all these games, and then we'll know for sure.
The Bucs could beat the Jets with Kyle Trask at quarterback. I've been on the record saying that today in the press box. And did
you say the Jets should have taken Kyle Trask over Zach Wilson? Have you said that yet on the air?
No, I've not said that, but
okay. You're getting
Kyle Trask got quarterback for the Bucs if they have all their main guys could beat the Jets.
Wow, impressive. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, still a lot to be looked forward to for the Bucs, obviously, but super frustrating one. No way to get around it. Losing twice to this team, I don't care who's out there, is just not good at all. It's just straight up ugly. And you leave the Saints alive and well and kicking and confident too going into the final month of the season. So Bucs fall to 10-4. We'll see how they can finish out the season. We'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern on the Pewter Report podcast for all the Pewter Report crew, including Scott Reynolds, who was on the podcast earlier, JC Allen, who's not on the show tonight. I'm sorry, JC, we missed you. I know he probably wanted to go to bed as soon as he could. K Huddy and M&M on the show here. You see what I did there, Matt?
Love that.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm John Ledyard. Thanks so much for listening, and we appreciate your support. Hit thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. We'll catch you again tomorrow on another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.